On Friday, there was an unpleasant exchange of tweets between Ed Mullins, head of the Sergeant Benevolent Union, and New York City Council member Ritchie Torres. Here's the tweet saying, quote, "Here we go, America. This is what a first-class blank looks like." Ritchie Torres passes laws to defund police, supports criminals, and now because he's running for office, he blames the police to protect what he voted for, end quote. That tweet has since been removed. However, the message out there. And this morning we are joined by Councilmember Ritchie Torres. After all, I know we said we weren't sure if we were going to get you, but we got past technical difficulties. Good morning to you, sir. How you doing?
It's an honor to be with you.
So let's talk about this because there was a lot of outrage on social media immediately after that tweet. What were your first thoughts after seeing that and the language used?
Look, it hardly came as a shock to me. There's nothing benevolent about the Sergeant Benevolent Association, which is essentially has become a hate group masquerading as a labor union. We've seen from Ed Mullins a clear pattern of directing hate speech toward public figures. He referred to the former health commissioner as the B word. He has referred to an openly LGBTQ elected official as a first-class whore. He has threatened the mayor himself. He's invaded the privacy of the mayor's daughter. He once appeared on television with a Quanon mug. Quanon is a far-right conspiracy movement that traffics in racism and anti-Semitism. And so as far as I'm concerned, just a hateful speech disqualifies Ed Mullins from serving in a position of public responsibility.
Yeah.
If he has no...
The backstory here before the tweet was because you were questioning if there was an NYPD slowdown, right? Citing fewer gun arrests, fewer gun cases solved, slower response to the gun violence. So the words used were serious in that tweet, but he was saying that they were serious accusations you were making. I'm just curious if you have proof, if there is in fact a slowdown, what your thoughts are overall in this investigation here.
I did not claim that there was a slowdown. I called for an investigation to determine whether there was a slowdown. There historically has been a surge in shootings in the summertime, but in 2020 we saw a doubling of the summertime surge in shootings. Meanwhile, the NYPD has been making fewer arrests, has been solving cases at a lower rate, has been responding more slowly to gun crimes in progress, all of which are possible signs of a slowdown. And so I joined Borough President Eric Adams in calling for an independent investigation to determine whether there is in fact a slowdown and to what extent has the slowdown driven the growth in violence.
Right.
Those are fair questions to ask, and only an independent investigation can get us answers to those questions.
And that's why, frankly, folks put you into office, right? They put you in the city council to call for investigations like that and to have their back and make sure the streets are safe. We did reach out to Ed Mullins from the SBA, and he did provide us with this statement, and I want to read it to you. City Councilman, every time an elected official is called on the carpet for their failures, their immediate defense is to label their opposition racist, anti-woman, homophobic. Rarely do they defend their position. The media, in turn, play along with these indefensible accusations in the hope that it draws attention to their story. Truth is, you can label anyone with anything without having any knowledge of who they really are. That's how dumb this whole politically correct nonsense has become. Bottom line, Councilman Torres owns the violence occurring in the NYC, and he is now attempting to blame the police for his failures in the hope of getting elected for a congressional seat. Your response?
Well, first of all, I'm going to be elected. I won the Democratic primary in the most Democratic district in America, so it has nothing to do with electoral politics. My position is that the dramatic increase in gun violence is best explained by the dramatic decrease in gun enforcement. There is under-policing of gun violence in New York City, and as a policymaker, I have an obligation to speak out against it. My constituents are telling me the police are less responsive to them. Am I to ignore those concerns? No, I'm supposed to bring those concerns to the public spotlight. That is my role as a policymaker, and instead of responding to my argument with arguments of his own, Ed Mullins chose to resort to character assassination. And that is his modus operandi. And that he has no business serving in a position of public responsibility.
And the media that was quoted in that quote saying we play along in the indefensible accusations. I just want to say, in response to that, just from our behalf, that people can disagree and they can have debates and discussions about topics just as this isn't crime, but when it gets to rhetoric that we see, that's not okay. And I'm just curious real quick what you think overall of language being used like that.
Look, it reflects the coarsening of discourse in America, and it reflects the poisonous influence that Donald Trump has had on our politics. But again, it's not uncharacteristic of Ed Mullins, right? Mm-hmm. Here's a man who has a pattern of trafficking in racism and sexism and misogyny. This is not something that I made up. There's a well-established public record, and it's worth noting that Ed Mullins receives over $130,000 a year on the public dime. So we, the taxpayers, are subsidizing his hate speech.
Understood. Councilmember Ritchie Torres, hey, I appreciate your time this morning and talking with us about this topic and more. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.